Welcome to the DeFi podcast, where we discuss all things DeFi. We host in-depth discussions with industry leaders with a focus on the Avalanche ecosystem. The content of this podcast is for informational purposes only. Statements made by hosts or guests reflect their own beliefs and opinions and is not investment advice. The host or guests may have personal investments in any assets being discussed.
Hey everyone, welcome to the DeFi podcast. I will start by introducing our co-host, starting with Rhett. Rhett has a background in AI and ML. He's a decentralization maxi, who also happens to be the founder of Gravita and upcoming Avant. Next, we have Bill. Bill is an ex-Marine, ex-market maker from Wall Street, and currently a venture capitalist, as well as a BJJ superstar. We also have Jared. Jared is the OG DeFi person on this podcast. He was so early in crypto that he once minted and deleted 300 Bitcoins on purpose because they were worthless at the time. Currently, he is a senior DeFi analyst at Google, which is the highest yielding liquid staking product on Avalanche. I'm JF. I'm the head of DeFi at Google and an advisor to Avant. So today, I think we want to talk about a number of different topics. Bill, what was the first thing that we want to chat about?
Sure, yeah. I think the thing that's foremost on everyone's minds is, okay, now that the ETH ETF is here, what's the price action look like? How do we feel about it? Is it going to change going forward? How does it feel now? Basically, like, when did the ETFs go live? They went about, I think it was Wednesday of last week, so it's been a little bit over a week. And so far, the price action hasn't been great, although it's basically the entire market dumping. I was looking at Bitcoin ETF inflows and outflows, and the GBTC unwind was a big deal, and there was a ton of outflows in the old Grayscale Trust, but the inflows to the other ETFs really overwhelmed it and did really well for the Bitcoin ETF. Right now, we're not seeing the same for ETH. I think Hill Dobby posted something on Dune, which was great. Basically, he showed that so far for the first 9 days, I think inclusive of today, which is Friday, August 2nd, there's basically been 1 or 2 days of inflows, and it's been net outflows. So it's a bit worrying for anyone who's holding a decent amount of ETH. Can I share a chart that I have open? Sure. Here we go. Hill Dobby posted this cool dashboard on dune.com, and you can see this is the net inflows or outflows into ETFs from Ethereum. You can see the first day we had a nice $109 million inflow into ETH, but most of the rest of the days have been down, some small updates. Now, this would be a little bit worrying, but if you look at what happened with Bitcoin, for the first basically 4 months, there were massive outflows from Grayscale, which kind of overwhelmed everything. And I think we're going to have to wait, unfortunately, until the end of the year for net inflows to really push the ETH price up. So anyway, so it's over. And I'm not really adjusting the size of my ETH bags. How do you guys feel?
I'm currently pretty bullish on a bear market.
You're bullish on a bear market? You think we're going into a bear market? Is that what you mean?
Potentially.
My guess is that there's lots of factors, right? So there's some uncertainty with the election, who's going to win, and what will that mean for crypto? I think there's some uncertainty about macro and interest rates, which definitely is affecting the market too. As far as the ETFs effect, Bitcoin's ETF, I think, has had big positive effects, but it took a little while for that to play out. I kind of expect the same. I've expected all along for there to be some big Grayscale outflows. Once those outflows kind of taper off, then I think we can kind of see how much structural demand there really is. It's kind of to be seen, I think. But there's been more general activity and more inflows into the other ETFs than a lot of people had said. So we've got a couple billion going into the new ETFs. Grayscale still accounts for like almost 75% of the ETFs, and that one's losing steam. But I think to be expected. So I say give it a few months to see how big the positive structural effect will be. That probably gains momentum over time as well, because there still is a little bit of an educational need where a lot of people who have heard of Bitcoin haven't really heard of anything else. I think Ethereum's TradFi flows are likely to kind of gain steam over the next few years, I'm guessing, where people come to understand more what crypto outside of Bitcoin really is.
You're bigger in the Ethereum community than I think the three of us. What's the sort of reaction to this in the ETH community?
I think Generally positive. There was a lot of pushback from certain people saying there never would be an ETH ETF. I think there's been pretty big confidence in Ethereum for a long time that there would be, and there obviously now is. I think it's pretty likely that there aren't any other ETFs for a while. Like if you look at the Grayscale case that basically forced the SEC to approve the Bitcoin ETF, the same facts and circumstances applied to ETH, because the argument was like, you have a futures ETF. There's not really any reason that you shouldn't allow a spot ETF if you're already allowing a futures one. There really are only the two futures ETFs, Bitcoin and ETH. And so those facts don't apply to anyone else. I think it's going to be just the two for a while. I think so. It's positive. That's a nice confirmation to the ETH community. The people that I tend to talk a lot to are a lot of like DeFi builders and users and things like that. Not exactly the user group that's interested in ETF. So not a ton of attention is paid to it. Like when I'm talking to people in the ETH community, the ETF doesn't even come up a lot. We're talking about what people are building in DeFi, things like that. So I can't give like a ton of insight there, but I think it was a big validation because, like I said, there was a noteworthy, decently sized group of people that said there would never be an ETH ETF, even a week before the ETF went live. So that's very validating. And by the way, I do think that most crypto assets that get to a certain size will end up having ETFs, but it's probably going to be a pretty slow road. Like if you look at Bitcoin and ETH, they've been around a while and quite a bit longer than most of the rest. And then both of them got futures ETFs, and then those ran for a few years, and then spot ETFs later. So I think it'll probably be kind of a slow burn for others.
What happens if, say, for whatever reason, Gary Gensler stays at the SEC for the rest of his term and another 4 years? Does that mean pause on all ETFs? Is it, so we're stuck with, we basically have these two and that's it for a while? Or does there have to be some sort of a regime change in order for that to happen?
Yeah, I'm not really an expert. Gensler's definitely super anti-crypto, but he's losing every case, so it's making it harder and harder for him to block things. If this path is the path that the others end up trotting, what we're more likely to be paying attention to for a while for the others is, can they get futures ETFs? Maybe he'll seek to block it there so that he's not forced to give spot ETFs after. I'm not sure. But given that they approve futures ETFs for Bitcoin and ETH for, that have certain properties, I'm guessing even trying to block that would be really hard. My guess is this gives like a pretty clear path to others. My personal view is it won't take others like Solana, Avalanche, etc., as long to get ETFs as it took ETH and Bitcoin. I think it'll speed up, but I still don't think we're going to see like another ETF in the next year.
I guess like what this signifies is that there wasn't a big inflow, so there's not that much demand from traditional investors, right? So like if you want to just own ETH and you're like a retail investor, you could just go on chain and buy ETH somehow. These products appeal more to like older folks or different types of investors, like more institutional and traditional. There's a lot of demand for Bitcoin from those crowds, but maybe not a lot of demand for Ethereum from those crowds. Maybe Ethereum is not sort of accepted as a main crypto asset yet.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% buy that explanation, JF, because even today, like I was having because the stock market is down horrendous today and yesterday. And so the guy I sit next to at this co-working location, he runs like a podcast advertising agency, and he turns to me and he asks me about the markets and about whether he should get into crypto. And then we're talking about, I think you should buy this and that. And he's like, what do you mean? Like, all I'm going to buy is Bitcoin. That's it. I don't even know anything else. Right. So he's like trying to get exposure. He's a retail guy, wants to get exposure to something. He understands what's going on in markets, but he's never heard of Ethereum. I mean, but I think that could be a good thing, because as the education efforts kind of ramp up for retail, it could be a buyer. It's just not going to happen right away. It's going to take time.
I'm kind of curious, Rhett, for your take on whether or not you think, so price aside, is an ETF actually beneficial for the Ethereum ecosystem?
I think so. Yeah. I think what do you want to happen to ETH for the ETH ecosystem to benefit? One, you want there to be growing demand for the asset. You want that demand to happen from a diverse group of people. You want to decentralize ownership. This is a new group of people that are buying this asset. Ideally, you want to have a diverse group of people participating and validating the network. I mentioned before, I think that we're probably going to end up having ETFs that are allowed to stake under the hood, and that probably diversifies staking. So that's a good thing. I think it also paves the way for understanding where, a lot of these institutions that are building and then buying these ETFs will start understanding better how smart contract networks work. And that, I think, paves the way to accelerate swapping out a lot of traditional financial rails with DeFi rails. I think helping TradFi guys to understand this better is just helpful for the industry. BlackRock already seems to understand it pretty well. If you hear Larry Fink talk about DeFi, he'll talk pretty openly about, hey, I think, in the future, all these, equities and things will be tokenized, living on chain, traded on decentralized exchanges, et cetera. That'll be better, but we need more people there. So I think all of those things are positive. And yeah, the negative arguments of like, well, ETH is meant to be used, and if someone's just buying and sitting on it, it's not really serving that purpose. I think it's okay for an asset to be used by some and sat on by others. We see that with certain commodities, and it's not a bad thing for some people to buy gold and hold it, and other people to buy gold and put it in, electronics.
I think we want to talk about the fact that the biggest super PAC now is actually a crypto super PAC. Bill, do you want to share screens?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I don't know if you guys saw this, but yeah, I knew that crypto was becoming a powerhouse in terms of lobbying, but I didn't realize it was this big. Just bear with me 1 second while I find the right tweet. Okay, here you go. Boom. Okay, did you guys see this tweet? So basically, this tweet shows how much the largest super PACs have raised. And you can see the top one here is called the Fair Shake PAC. It has raised about $200 million, and it's more than both the Make America Great Again super PAC, which has $201 million, and then, I guess whatever the top left-leaning one is as well. I'm not sure which one of these it is. I don't really know how to make heads or tails out of, campaign finance, but $200 million for a crypto super PAC seems like a lot. I guess I just bring this up in the sense that maybe we are going to be able to influence the election in a way that's positive for crypto. And it's a reason to be buying some dips, being encouraged to hold on to our bags. Don't tap out right before we basically get the regulatory regime that we've always wanted for crypto. Yeah, I don't know. But then again, if you also look at what's going on with polling, it seems like Kamala Harris is also starting to poll really well. It's becoming more of a coin flip. And the scary scenario for crypto is, right now, crypto Twitter is very negative on the left. And, maybe they piss off the wrong people and Kamala Harris wins. And then we continue in this regulatory regime for the next 4 years. So I don't know what to make of it, heads or tails, but it definitely seems like a lot is riding on this election. It's a big event for crypto.
And crypto Twitter is like super torn, right? Like some people are saying include the left, others are saying do not. They've only betrayed us in the past and they'll continue to betray us. So don't cower and bend a knee. Just curious on if you guys have opinions on that. Like, what's the right approach for crypto?
I've heard some pretty strong, pretty credible rumors that Kamala is trying to reset with crypto, but we haven't heard her really say anything yet. I think a lot of crypto people are just kind of waiting to see, is she really going to change her tune? Is she going to maybe do things in her current VP position to maybe she tries to advocate for the firing of Gary even before she's elected. President can't just do that himself, but who knows if there's something there. So I think Kamala is just a little bit more unknown, although the left has been very anti, and that's definitely problematic. I'm curious. I want to look more into who's behind this PAC, because there have been past cycles where there was a lot of crypto investment, but coming from the wrong people. So Sam Bankman-Fried was the number one Democrat Party contributor this cycle before he got arrested, and was pushing for some really problematic legislation and regulatory stuff. Gensler was close to basically giving him a regulatory monopoly. There was a bill that was being proposed in Congress that got leaked, which is what really led to the downfall of Sam. And that bill would have basically banned DeFi and anointed potentially a few winners, FTX being the biggest winner. And so that, while it was like a crypto person spending a lot of money lobbying, he was lobbying to kill a lot of the most important, most valuable parts of crypto in favor of himself. I'm guessing this PAC is better, but I don't know the details. I think that what I've heard from lobbying efforts going forward and donations going forward, it's much like broader seeking to benefit the industry widely and the things that are most valuable about the industry, like DeFi. But I don't necessarily consider all crypto donations the same. I do think that crypto at this point is like almost universally like anti the left, even though if you look at where crypto people come from, more come from the left than the right. More people in crypto are historically left than right, from what I've seen, and quite a few independents. And so I kind of think it's really scary for the left if they don't get a little bit more friendly, because they're losing a bunch of people. And the crypto contingent is growing. It's like, what, 50 million Americans or something, last estimate I heard, own crypto. And many crypto people are single issue or near single issue voters. It's a growing contingent that only one party is showing anything positive about.
Honestly, it's super frustrating because I love working on crypto. It's fascinating, and I don't want to bring politics into it, right? It's like, in my opinion, often it's just a waste of time. It just makes me frustrated. But then one party is so negative on it. But actually, the really frustrating thing is it's not even the whole left, right? There's actually many Democrats who are super pro crypto. Like there's a congressman here in New York named Richie Torres, and even like someone like AOC. Like I remember there was this congressional hearing maybe a year or two ago where they had, for the first time, like a congressional hearing of both the left and the right asking about crypto, a bunch of crypto panelists. And I think Gun from Avalanche and the guy from Circle were there, and a bunch of, and it was just like a very positive, very upbeat, everyone asking good questions, both the left and the right, just like trying to figure out how to move the space forward. But then the thing that's so frustrating is it seems like on the left, there's this kind of old guard, people who, the Elizabeth Warren wing of the party that's really kind of holding up everything. That I'm hoping that's the part that we can get past, because like you said, Rhett, like many people who are young, many people who skew left are super positive pro crypto, but somehow it just hasn't shown up in the politics yet.
Yeah, I agree. It's mostly been Warren and not the others. I think crypto should be universally embraced by Americans on both sides. It's a very freedom increasing technology. It's very democratizing to access to financial instruments to people all across the wealth spectrum. It doesn't have to be a right-only thing, and it isn't. But the Warren contingent is a huge problem, and I'm guessing that ends up changing. But it's unfortunate that it has been politicized, because I don't like paying so much attention to politics.
Yeah, I agree. It just boils my blood. I feel like I never really get anything positive out of it, so I try to minimize it. But then it's hard, in election years, it's just hard to filter it all out.
So I mentioned this on the last podcast we did. I am not of the opinion that they're really all that different. It's all just kind of a facade for the most part. And at the end of the day, or at least at the end of every 4 years, the results are kind of pretty similar. We're still going to end up with, whichever way it goes, in the US, you're going to end up with a government that just spends a lot of money. And so no matter how you look at it, it's bullish for crypto, because the value of a dollar is just going to continue to go down, and the value of crypto is just going to continue to go up. So either way, I think the bullish case for the sort of long-term outlook on crypto is pretty good. And, eventually, if everyone's trading around, because you look at how much value the US dollar has lost in the last 50, 100 years, right? It's like you're trading with pennies compared to trading with dollars from where it used to be. And if that trend continues, and usually what ends up happening is that actually tends to accelerate, you're going to get more people who want to use crypto just because it's more convenient. They don't have to worry maybe so much about what is the value of their dollar going to be 4 or 5 years from now if they're trying to actually save their money. And I think if you look into other countries where crypto has caught on a lot more because they have unstable economies, it's kind of a look to a little bit of the future of what it's going to be like in this sort of area here.
I think I agree with Jared in the sense that whoever gets elected is going to spend too much, and that's long-term bullish for crypto. I guess my observation is that it's weird that the left has become this anti-innovation party and group. I don't think you would have seen this under past administrations. So the current left is not, I think, just representative of what the left traditionally used to believe, obviously. And it's not just crypto, right? It's a bit across the board. You see the same thing with Tesla and with a bunch of other cases. Can we move to, on the topic of crypto and government, the DMV this week, coming to Avalanche. Bill, do you want to tee us off on that?
For a long time, we've heard real world assets are going to make their way on chain, and for not just Avalanche, but for many chains. And this week there was a huge announcement in that vein, which is that essentially the entire California DMV is moving their records, some portion of their records, on chain, which was announced this week. I guess they've already behind the scenes done the work and it's on a chain. It's not at the point where like you or I could go see it on some sort of block explorer, but there's apparently going to be an app that you can download on your phone if you live in California, and you can start interacting with the DMV and doing things that would have taken you two hours, let's say, with the title of your car. You can essentially do it in minutes. Not launched yet, but going to happen soon. So this was really exciting to me. I mean, if you've ever dealt with the titles for anything, houses, cars, it's kind of scary actually, because if you lose this piece of paper, it's actually really hard to find or get back or replace. Whoever owns it has legal rights to stuff. It's kind of a scary, bureaucratic thing that you have to deal with when you become an adult. It was kind of cool to see it on chain. I can't wait to actually use it myself and see more of this type of activity and just start coupling my car's title with USDC and putting it on an LP and Uniswap and seeing what happens.
It's super funny if people financialize this in that way. I think this is a really great boring use case, and I think the boring use cases are going to become way more prevalent. Most people will be using crypto in ways that they don't realize in a long time. I've been talking for years about the importance of titles, like title companies. It's a super hard. It's an even harder job with like property, because you have to like find like long history of ownership and liens and all this stuff, and tracking that stuff down can be really hard. So it just makes sense to swap out some of the tech here for these things. I think this is just the beginning. A lot of crypto should exist where it'll end up being invisible to people. Like most people that are doing stuff with California DMV won't know or care that it's on a blockchain. They just know that their experience transferring their title was easier and it didn't get lost.
I think if they want to be really innovative, they'd start issuing NFTs based on your car, and then you can go and stick your BMW on a lending platform and start borrowing some USDC or some AVAX against your car.
Well, these will be NFTs, right? I'm guessing. The question is, can you tie some like financial or other financializable metadata to the NFT and then go do degen stuff with it?
They were already talking about making it so that you can transfer it from one state to another, which is a pain in the butt right now. Whatever we can do to stay away and outside of government buildings, get everything done online in a way where because the problem is all these places like the record management system, they never talk to each other, right? This is one of the biggest issues. So instead you're manually going and take care of things, and moving this to the chain just makes a lot of sense. Like you said, Rhett, it's not like the most exciting thing in the world. It's not a number type technology on block, but it is cool to see. And, as an AVAX maxi, self-about AVAX maxi, this is one of those things where I see a chain that you can customize to your own use case being valuable, right? Because, someplace like the California government is not going to put something on chain unless they can set some parameters about how that chain is controlled. So they're able to do that with Avalanche. They can do that with some other chains too. It's not just Avalanche, but like they can't just go put it on Ethereum mainnet. It wouldn't work. Anyway, it just shows that there's like plenty of space for many different chains to do cool and innovative things.
One thing to note back on the politics thing is California is one of the bluest states, and they're doing this. So clearly not all people on the left are completely against the technology. Back to your point about it's kind of maybe just Elizabeth Warren and her contingent that are causing problems.
Yeah, very tech forward. So I would love to hear a little bit of your thoughts about Ethena and the project that you're working on right now. And if you want, you can touch on some of the other ones.
Yeah, great question. So some of this is going to be maybe... So a little bit further back history. Ethena, I don't know if you call it a stablecoin or stablecoin-like, but it's tokenizing this cash and carry trade where you have a long exposure to ETH via ideally liquid staking tokens so you can get the yield. And then you open up short perps positions to hedge that out. Most people would say that's not a stablecoin. It's more of like a market neutral token. There were some concerns in the very early days that it was like, oh, this is the next Terra Luna because look how high the yield is. And I think that's like a really naive comparison. Terra Luna had death spiral mechanics due to the fact that they are essentially collateralizing Terra with something that is high, like excessively volatile and can't properly collateralize something once it gets to a certain size. So I think the comparison there is not accurate. Ethena has the ability to lose money, but it doesn't have death spiral mechanic. One thing that I think is really positive about Ethena specifically is it already has kind of helped rationalize the perps market a little bit. It used to be that you would have to pay incredible amounts of money to go long because there weren't enough people going short. Them opening up so many short positions has kind of balanced that out a little bit. Their yields have come down as a result, which is fine. It was like 65% yields the first like month, and now it's like seven, still not bad for something like this. So I think that's a really positive thing. I think it's also kind of good timing. A lot of people are interested in yield right now. Interest rates are high. Market is a little bit, at least more bullish than it was last year. And so for people who want to be in stable coins, they need better yields to do so. And so having some nice baked in yield is good. So we're starting to see more stable coins with more baked in yield or stablecoin like products. So that's, basic thoughts on Ethena. And I think it's a great product. I think it's not the only approach to kind of baking in some yield. So MakerDAO's SDAI has baked in yield from the DAI savings rate. SFRAX has baked in yield, and there's several others. And they come from various sources, but having some baked in yield, either from RWAs or for this cash and carry trade or other market neutral trades, I think is a pretty positive thing. And is very democratizing as well, because a lot of people that maybe want access to those yields maybe aren't sophisticated enough to know how to do some of the market neutral trades in a solid way. So standardizing some of that and bringing it to everyone, I just think is a really positive thing, because they might not have access to a hedge fund that was going to do it. And if they try to do it themselves, they mismanage their hedge and would blow up. And so I think that's a really positive development.
But I'd love to transition this into Avant. So, Rhett, you're the founder of Avant. I'm going to be a strategic advisor to Avant. Bill's going to be an advisor to Avant as well. We're all pretty involved. Google Pool has also helped incubate Avant, so we all believe in it. I personally think it's going to have an important impact on DeFi, on Avalanche. Maybe you could talk a little bit about the differences in the product. I think that would be pretty interesting for most to hear a little bit about how is Avant different than Ethena.
So Avant is actually going to be launching two things. One will be a CDP stable, similar to Liquidity, similar to Gravita. But before that, there will be this market neutral token. So you could think of it in the same family as Ethena. There's a couple of key differences here. I'm kind of a DeFi maxi. I really prefer to do these things on chain if possible. The transparency is amazing. And DeFi has really matured since the last cycle. Perps markets are bigger and growing, and gas fees aren't so crazy. So the Avant market neutral token will essentially engage with some counterparties that run market neutral strategies similar to Ethena, but all on chain and with a little bit broader of a mandate. So difference number one is DeFi only, which brings greater transparency. Difference number two is a little bit broader mandate. So the Avant team ourselves are not doing any trading, but the counterparties that we're engaging with will do things like the cash and carry trade, like Ethena does, but they'll do that on chain. But they'll also have the ability to do other market neutral trades. There are many. Some are better in a bull market, some are better in a bear market. We think allowing a broader mandate makes for a more robust protocol with respect to risk and with respect to returns as well, where maybe in certain market conditions, the cash and carry trade is the best thing you can do, market neutral, and in others, it might not be optimal. So the goal here is to, again, democratize access to these things by engaging with these counterparties, but with much broader mandate. And we think Ethena is great, but we think this will kind of have a really valuable role in the ecosystem. We love the transparency of DeFi, and we love the broader mandate. We just think is a good way to go.
And what's exciting about the broader mandate specifically is this could potentially lead to much higher yields, correct?
That's one thing. Yeah, if you look at what are the highest yielding things to do in a market neutral fashion, if you started in 2020 in crypto and moved through to today, it's gone through many different iterations. It changes over time. And being able to adapt to those iterations, I think, is a good thing. You do want some guardrails on. So, like, for instance, we won't allow our counterparties to engage with some hot new stablecoin with a death spiral mechanic. I think the industry's kind of learned its lesson with those. I haven't seen any death spiral stables cropping up this cycle. But yeah, it just results in, we think, a more robust system if you allow your counterparties to be more adaptive to the market.
Great. I'm curious, Bill, you're an advisor on this project. What maybe attracted you to the project? What are your thoughts on what makes it interesting for Avalanche or for crypto in general?
Well, the first thing is honestly meeting Rhett and talking to him and hearing how thoughtful he is and how much experience he has with stablecoins in general. That was the first draw. But then specifically about Avant, the flexibility that he talked about, the nimbleness of being able to move from one trade to another in a market neutral strategy is huge. I mean, my understanding of Ethena and Ethena is awesome. I think it's really an incredible project, and they've kind of shown what's possible to scale so quickly. It's great. But the mechanism of, like, for example, if they're just long ETH and short ETH, they're doing Bitcoin too, but let's ignore that for a second. Like, if that trade collapses and goes to negative and starts yielding negative, they don't have some sort of active manager who's getting out of that trade and into something that's yielding positive. They just let people who are partaking in the ecosystem observe that the yields have gone negative or have gone low and allow them to just leave and put their money someplace else. So it's kind of like they built this kind of self-correcting mechanism. So it's a little bit different. This one is, I think, as you mentioned, Jeff, is going to be more nimble, and it's going to be hopefully higher yielding. That's the first thing. The second thing is Avalanche L1s are, in my opinion, in a unique place in all of blockchains, and Avant is going to have deep integration with Avalanche, not just the C chain, but hopefully all the chains that launch within Avalanche. And I don't think it'll necessarily be on Ethena's to-do list to put a market neutral stable value token like on all of these chains that are going to launch on Avalanche. So there's going to be a requirement to have some sort of stable value token on all these chains, and Avant could fit that nicely. So I think those are the deep integration with Avalanche and kind of having this nimble structure where the yields are hopefully higher.
If I can maybe give the Google pool point of view, what excited us initially when we started talking about this product was how impactful it could be to Avalanche DeFi. So because of the underlying trade that happens, you sort of end up touching different primitives. Under the basic cash and carry trade, if that's the trade that's being used, as Rhett mentioned, there could be different mandates, but you would be touching, generally speaking, liquid staking tokens, borrow land markets, other stable coins, and the perps market. So literally, you can have one protocol, one primitive that can touch all these other primitives and really sort of heighten up the TVL in all these different verticals. So that's pretty exciting. That was the initial reason why, as soon as we saw this project and knowing Rhett and knowing his team, I mean, I wasn't that familiar with the team, but like getting to meet them and to see who was behind Gravita, we were pretty enthralled pretty early on and thought this is just something that needed to exist in general in crypto, but specifically on Avalanche was really exciting. I think over time, as this protocol has been sort of marching forward and advancing, the realization, at least for me, is that every market is composed of different segments, different types of, let's say in financial markets, different types of investors that have different risk to reward sort of products that they're looking for. And Ethena is a great product without any clear, at least in my mind, like direct competitors. I think it will be different than every other product. And the risk reward ratio, in my expectation, will be very competitive. So we think that this could be positioned against Ethena as a different option for different types of investors that sort of have a different profile, and might turn out to be really, really popular. And I guess sort of like the last point I would make on it is that it feels like we are entering maybe a new space where I think this product will be interesting for off-chain folks. And not every fund has the capacity to invest in this type of thing because they're highly regulated and so on. But if you're a TradFi fund that has a sort of a wide mandate and you're allowed to go on-chain, this looks like something you may want to put in your fund. It looks like something that I would want to be exposed to, even if I wasn't in crypto. Yeah, just lots of potential for all players involved. And like Rhett said, I do also love the fact that everything's on chain. I also happen to be a decentralization maxi. So yeah, I think that's great.
One of the things that you briefly touched on that is one of the most exciting things to me is we're empowering our counterparties to play positive sum games with all the great builders in DeFi. We've seen some other teams in DeFi be really good at that. Frax Finance is notoriously very positive sum with other DeFi builders, and we love that. There's some other really great ones out there too.
Not notoriously, yeah.
They are famously positive sum, and they're great. The Liquidity team is also very positive sum, has been with Gravita especially, and others too. We love being able to come play positive sum games with others. I think that's great. There's a lot of other great protocols out there to play positive sum games with, including some of the ones mentioned here. There's other really great ones, by the way. An interesting one to pay attention to with a unique kind of spin on the tokenized cash carry like Ethena is called Flat Money. It's more decentralized as well. On the long side, it's all RE, but the short side is all happening on basically a decentralized perps platform that they built. So it's kind of an integrated product. But playing positive sum games with all these different players, I think, is a really good thing. And we love that we'll be able to empower our counterparties to do that.
So, Rhett, I'm kind of curious. Before launching Gravita, you were working at Wave Capital, right?
Yeah, Wave Asset Management.
So you went from being an employee at Wave, and then you went to being a founder at Gravita, and then you went to being a founder a second time over at Avant. First question is, do you get any sleep? And the second one would be, what's it been like to go from like being one of the crew to like being head of the crew? And then doing that again?
Yeah, good question. I should probably sleep more. So the reason why I founded both Gravita and Avant is because in both cases, there were some needs not being met in the market that we felt like needed to be met. And I'm a DeFi maxi, and I feel like if there's something that needs to be built and no one else is building it, I'll go build it. I worked for a SaaS company as a data scientist before crypto, and there was kind of a common kind of belief in the company that if something needs to be done, you don't need to necessarily wait for others to do it. If code needs to be written and it normally would be sitting on another team's desk, but they're busy, maybe you write the code and get them to review it, And so it's just kind of a little bit in my personality of if there's something that needs to be done, no one's doing it, might as well be the one to do it. The transition from being a team member to a founder, luckily, I've had a team built around me that is a lot of really good independent self-starter types. And so I kind of don't feel like I need to do too much to manage any of my team. It's more like, hey, this person's great at UI, UX, etc. And, he catches the vision, he knows what he needs to do, and he's just doing his thing, and I'm just supporting him. So I feel like just kind of supporting the team is what it's ended up looking like more, which I like because I'm not super big on hierarchy. So depends on the team as to whether or not you can do that. But we've got a great team of independent builders.
I think we'll talk about Avant some more in the future as there's more developments. I think we should follow up next week. Thanks a lot, everyone. Please follow us on Twitter and YouTube, and as Jared says, all the other places. And we'll see you next week.